Our bed was still warm from our lovemaking when Hope shattered our intimacy with a confession that chilled me to the bone. I crave the touch of others before we wed. Her words, laced with a hunger I couldn't satisfy, turned our promised forever into a precarious now. As she pursued her desires, I was left questioning the essence of our passion and commitment. This is my story of love, lust, and the painful quest for truth. Enjoy watching it.
Hope met Michel, a tall, athletic, and very handsome guy when she was 17. He was 4 years older than her and a friend of her cousin. She liked him right away, and the idea of love at first sight suddenly made sense to her. Hope pursued him, but it didn't take long to win his attention. She was pretty, charming, and had a great personality. Michel quickly fell for her and was overjoyed to be loved by such a wonderful person. He felt like he had been struck by Cupid's arrow. Their romance was intense and quick. At first, Hope lied about her age, telling Michel she was 20 because she thought her real age might scare him off. She didn't like lying, but thought it was worth it to be with him. He only found out the truth as her 18th birthday neared, but by then he was too captivated by her lovely golden hair and kind nature. 6 years later, Michel proposed, and she said yes. They spent a joyful night together, celebrating their future. Life seemed perfect for Hope. They often talked about their future home, their careers, and when to have kids. But Hope had one nagging doubt that she needed to discuss with him tonight. Michel worked at a local high school and had just been promoted. He loved Hope deeply and planned a romantic trip to surprise her. He bought roses and her favorite champagne to make the night special, hoping to reassure her of his love. When he arrived home, he found the apartment romantically set up with candles and a beautifully prepared dinner. Hope greeted him warmly in a lovely dress. She was clearly trying to make the night special, which made Michel even happier. He gave her the gifts, and she was thrilled. After a playful exchange in the kitchen, Michel quickly showered and dressed for dinner. Hope was a fantastic cook, having once dreamt of becoming a chef before deciding it wasn't for her. Now she put her culinary passion into making delicious meals for the people she loved. As they sat together sipping champagne, Michel looked at Hope with excitement about sharing his plans. "Hope, he began, smiling widely, but before he could continue, Hope interrupted him, looking serious and a bit nervous. "Michel, I need to say something important," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "I love you so much, Michel. You make me incredibly happy," she continued, but her anxiousness was starting to affect him too. She stopped him again as he tried to speak. "You are the best man I know. How do I say this?" She hesitated, her words faltering. "I've been thinking a lot. Hope was clearly struggling, her anxiety building. She suggested, "Maybe you could read what I sent instead?" She quickly handed him her phone, which displayed an advice column. "Please read this with an open mind," she requested softly. Michel read the column, which discussed love and relationships. Hope's message revealed her deep love, but also her fear of missing out on other experiences due to their early relationship. Michel was shocked and accidentally dropped the phone. It clattered loudly on the table. "Do you have someone else in mind?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "No, Michel, absolutely not. It's not about replacing you," Hope hurried to explain, reaching for his hand. But Michel pulled away, hurt and confused. "This changes everything. Doesn't my love satisfy you?" he asked, hurt visible in his eyes. Hope tried to reassure him. "No, Michel, your love is beautiful and means everything to me. But I have questions about myself, about experiences I've never had." She saw his tears and regretted her words. "Please don't cry, I don't want to ruin us," she pleaded. Michel sat silently, feeling inadequate despite her reassurances. Hope continued, trying to lighten his mood. "This could help us confirm our love before we get married. We could see other people temporarily," she suggested gently, hoping to ease his pain. She approached him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "I love you, Michel," she said as she kissed him softly, wishing she could take back her words that had unintentionally hurt him. As they sat together, Michel couldn't help but imagine things that upset him. "Could you read the whole article and then talk about it with me?" Hope asked, trying to kiss him. He turned his head so her kiss landed on his cheek. Though surprised by his reaction, she continued, "This is a big moment for us, and I need to know we can talk about it openly." Michelle reached for her phone reluctantly, as if it was something dangerous. He unlocked it, feeling like he didn't know Hope as well as he thought he did. He read the article again, which was trying to be fair, but didn't encourage Hope's idea, only cautioned about the risks of changing their relationship. The article talked about potential problems like jealousy and betrayal, and stressed the importance of clear rules and communication. It asked them to think about how they would manage their relationship during this time and what their expectations were. As he read, Michelle felt overwhelmed by emotions. Hope looked hopeful yet teary, understanding his struggle. He doubted her love for the first time, unsure how they would make it to their wedding in 7 months. "Is this really what you want?" he asked, his voice heavy with sadness. Hope quickly replied, "No, not more than our wedding. I want to be with you forever. But I also want to explore life beyond us before we marry," she added, trying to explain her feelings. "I love you so much, Michelle. Please, hold me." She tried to be close to him, but he gently stopped her. "I can't, Hope. Not now. This is too much for me." Michelle needed time to think. He stuttered, overwhelmed, and said he needed to leave. Hope watched, heartbroken, as he walked to the door, but he paused and reassured her. "I'm not leaving for good. I just need time to think." He left, and Hope felt lost. She called her friend Trisha for support, feeling like she had ruined everything. It was a work evening, which made the situation more complicated, but Hope was in pain and clearly needed her friends. If Michelle had left because of something serious, then Trisha knew they had to support Hope. She called their friends Eliza, Petra, Layla, and Kimberly, and they all agreed to come right away. They were shocked by how tired and sad Hope looked when they arrived. They hugged her and cried with her, even though they didn't fully understand her sadness yet. Finally, Eliza broke the silence by asking if Hope had cheated on Michelle, wondering what else could have driven him away. After all, Michelle's love for her was like something from a romance novel, and they all envied it. Hope showed them the same article she had shown Michelle earlier. "I sent this. Tonight I finally talked to him about it," she explained. Petra, the youngest at 19, quickly asked, "You didn't actually do it, did you?" Hope shook her head, and everyone sighed in relief that she hadn't cheated. But as they read the article and listened to Hope, they realized she was thinking about doing just that. "This man loves you, Hope. He adores you," Trisha said, wishing she could find someone like Michelle. She had faced one disappointment after another in her own dating life. Eliza then suggested, "Let's just cancel everything." She quickly clarified that she didn't mean the wedding when everyone looked worried. "I mean, just say you changed your mind." Hope repeated her earlier thoughts. "I won't cheat on him. I can't even explain it to myself, but he's the only man I've been with. I need to explore and understand more." She looked sad. "He wouldn't even be with me tonight, even though I begged him. I tried to force it, but it just pushed him away." Petra responded, "Can you blame him? He probably thought you were trying to bribe him." Hope started to speak, but then stopped. That was exactly what she had tried to do. Eliza added as the tears dried, "Men are good." They all laughed, but Eliza continued seriously, "But let me tell you, if I had to choose, I'd always choose the man who loves me. Sex without love fades, but love lasts. Don't confuse lust and love. Think with your head and heart." Hope then admitted, "Michelle is a great lover, but I have no one else to compare with. I just want to experience it once before we get married." Kimberly, cutting to the heart of it, warned, "Be careful. Someone else might take your place. This man is too good to let you test the waters without consequences." The room went silent again. Hope insisted, "I wouldn't disrespect him. If I did it, he could too. But it's for both of us." Kimberly countered, "That's exactly what he'll think, that you're using him." Layla finally spoke, choosing her words carefully. "You were honest with him, Hope, and he knows you love him. It's clear he loves you too. Stay true to what you need. If you really want this, see it through." The group was surprised by Layla's response, but agreed. "If you really need to do this, we'll help make it happen in a respectful way," they said. Trisha, still worried, added, "But what if one of you likes this new arrangement too much and doesn't want to stop?" The group fell silent, contemplating the risks. Hope was taking a big gamble. It was a busy work evening which only added to the complexity of the situation. Hope was clearly hurting and needed her friends. If Michelle had left because of something serious, Tricia knew they had to support Hope. She quickly called Eliza, Petra, Layla, and Kimberly to come over. They all arrived within an hour, shocked by Hope's worn-out look. They comforted her, trying to understand her sadness. Eliza was the first to voice the concern everyone was thinking. Maybe Hope had cheated on Michelle. After all, Michelle's love was like something from a romance novel. Hope showed them the article she had discussed with Michelle. "I sent this. Tonight, I finally talked to him about it," she explained. Petra, the youngest, quickly asked if Hope had actually cheated. Hope shook her head no, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But as they discussed more, it became clear that Hope was considering it. They spent the evening weighing the pros and cons of Hope's request, hugging and crying repeatedly. They feared for her relationship, but also helped her explore her thoughts. The next day, Michelle woke up exhausted and heartbroken, ignoring calls and texts from Hope and her friends. He needed time alone to think and eventually turned off his phone to avoid distractions. His friend Jason, who had experienced an open relationship that ended badly, offered some insights. Jason's advice, though biased, helped Michelle understand the potential risks. They talked it through, and Jason shared his own experiences without blaming Hope for her desires. Michelle spent the day reflecting on everything. Despite the advice and pleas from Hope's friends to reconsider, he felt certain about his feelings. They were all sad for him and Hope and apologized for the pain he was going through. Michelle finally sent a message to Hope saying he would see her soon. He didn't know if she would be at home or at work. Overwhelmed, he turned off his phone again. Jason offered him support and a place to stay if needed, giving him a comforting hug. "I'll be here for you," he assured Michelle. Grateful, Michelle thanked him and prepared to face what was next. As he neared home, his emotions overwhelmed him again, and he had to take deep breaths to calm himself. He approached the house with a heavy heart, unsure of what awaited him. This moment was going to be the hardest of his life, but Michelle had made up his mind. As he put the key in the lock, he could hear voices inside. Hope was there with some of her friends. He hesitated, not wanting to have this conversation in front of anyone else. It was too personal and too painful. Despite feeling embarrassed by Hope's wishes and upset at his own hesitation, Michelle reminded himself this was his home too. He had every right to walk in, so he entered with his head held high, determined not to show his pain. Inside, Hope, Petra, and Layla stopped talking and looked at him. The rest had left for work or school. Michelle walked in with a composed look, though it was just a facade hiding his hurt. "Michelle," Hope said quietly, her voice filled with worry. She moved towards him, but he stopped her with a raised hand. "We need to talk, just us," he said firmly, turning to her friends. "Layla, Petra, could you please give us a moment?" Hope squeezed her friends' hands in thanks as they got up to leave. "She loves you," Petra whispered to Michelle as she passed by, but he didn't react. The door closed, leaving Michelle and Hope alone with a heavy silence between them. Hope was anxious, biting her lip, hoping Michelle would reassure her that everything would be okay. She wanted to plead for her request, convinced it would benefit them both in the long run. Finally, Michelle motioned for her to sit beside him on the sofa. He took her hands gently and looked into her eyes, searching for understanding. Hope started to speak, but he shook his head, asking for silence. He kissed her softly, cutting off her words again. "I agree," he finally said, and Hope's relief was palpable. She hugged him tightly, but he gently disentangled himself, his expression serious. "But there are strict conditions," he added, causing Hope to tense up, fearing his next words. "If I don't agree, I feel like you might cheat anyway," Michelle continued, silencing her protests with a finger to her lips. "This desire of yours is too strong. It could end our relationship." "It's not fair to me," he said, looking at her. "You can easily find someone else, but I can't compete with that. We're playing different games. I could end things now, but that would hurt me more than you know," he continued, tears starting in his eyes. Hope started to cry too, repeating, "No, no." "So, for me to consider this, we need to change from 6 months to a year," he stated firmly. "No, Michelle, 6 months is all I need," Hope pleaded desperately. 12 months, Michel repeated, his tone final. Those are my conditions. This was going to be the toughest moment in his life, but Michel had made up his mind. As he turned the key in the lock, he realized Hope and some of her friends were inside. He hesitated, not wanting this personal conversation to happen in front of them. It was too painful and too private. Inside, Michel found Hope with Petra and Layla. Their chatting stopped as he entered. Michel composed himself, trying to hide his distress. "Hope," he said firmly, stopping her as she tried to approach. "We need to talk, just the two of us." He asked her friends politely, "Layla, Petra, could you give us some space, please?" They nodded and left, and Petra whispered to him as she passed, "She loves you." Michel didn't respond, focusing on the conversation ahead. Once alone, the air between them felt heavy. Hope looked anxious, biting her lip, waiting for Michel to speak. She wanted to convince him that her idea would somehow benefit them both. Michel took a deep breath and said, "We can end things now if this is too hard." Hope was shocked and asked why he would consider extending the time if 6 months already seemed too long. Michel replied, "I have my reasons, but I don't think I need to explain them right now." He continued, "This has caused me a lot of pain, Hope. So, we're going to pause our relationship. The wedding is off and we'll go our separate ways for now. It's simpler than explaining our situation to others." He reached for her hand gently, removing the wedding ring. Hope cried out as he put it in his pocket, "You won't wear this if we're not together." Michel stated firmly, "Also, we won't communicate at all during this break. No calls, texts, or social media." Hope was stunned. "No contact for a year? Are we breaking up then?" He struggled to stay composed as he outlined the rules. "You'll tell everyone the truth, that this was your choice. I won't be blamed for our split." Hope protested, realizing the gravity of what she had initiated. "I don't want this anymore. I'm sorry. It was a terrible mistake." Michel touched her cheek gently. "I know, but it's too late. I can't trust that you won't seek others if I'm not around." He stood up, his decision final. "It's decided then. I'll move out for now." Hope, desperate, asked about the rules for their break, like safety and boundaries. Michel was clear. "The only rules are what I've already said. You're responsible for your own safety." He left the room to pack, his heart heavy, leaving Hope to absorb the reality of their situation. They would meet in a year to see where things stood, but for now, everything was uncertain. Michel quickly packed the clothes and items he needed. "We'll meet in a year and see where we stand," he said without looking back. He didn't see Hope curl into a ball, her head buried in her knees. At that moment, he felt he had to distance himself to stick to his decision. He didn't want to weaken and go back on his resolve. With Jason's advice, he had planned this exit, and now he was leaving Hope's life for at least the next 12 months. He had packed his bags. Anything left behind he could replace. As he was about to leave, he paused at the door. "May 20th at the Brown Street Cafe at noon," he reminded Hope. She only whimpered in response. "Hope, do you understand?" he asked, but she was too overwhelmed to reply. Michel left the apartment for the last time, feeling a mix of emotions but resolved. Petra and Layla returned later to find Hope still on the couch, visibly shattered from crying non-stop. They sat with her, trying to comfort her with their presence. Trisha and Eliza came by later with drinks, deciding that the situation warranted setting aside their responsibilities for the night. They all needed to support Hope through this crisis. As the evening wore on, Hope finally explained everything. The empty closet, a note from Mitchell, and his blocked numbers told the whole story. This was a definitive break, not just temporary. The Facebook event for their wedding was cancelled with a straightforward explanation, and Michel had updated his Instagram with a meme about heartbreak, making his feelings public. "What do we do now?" Trisha asked, shocked by Michel's public statements. The situation had escalated quickly, and now Hope had to face the repercussions of her choices. Michel had also posted about a romantic weekend he had planned, now cancelled, offering it to anyone interested. Hope was left to consider the massive consequences of her actions: a lost relationship, a cancelled wedding, and a year without Michel. Meanwhile, Michel drove aimlessly, overwhelmed by the situation. He ended up on a remote road, unsure of where he was. He stopped the car and stepped out, needing a moment to grasp the full impact of what had happened. Overwhelmed, he shouted into the silence around him, releasing his frustration and sadness into the open air. Michelle hastily packed his belongings, deciding they would reassess their relationship in a year. He avoided looking back at Hope, who had curled up on the floor, overwhelmed by her emotions. Trying to contain his anger, Michelle walked to a nearby paddock and leaned against a wooden post. A cow and its calf stared at him indifferently. It struck him oddly that while his world was falling apart, these animals were simply concerned with finding greener grass. It reminded him that life goes on, regardless of personal turmoil. Realizing he needed support, Michelle checked his location on his phone and planned to drive to his parents' house, a trip that would take about 2 hours. On the way, he called his boss, Gianna Knox, a stern but fair woman known for treating everyone equally. His voice shaky, he tried to maintain his composure as he explained that he and Hope had broken up. Overwhelmed by emotion, he couldn't hold back his tears any longer. Gianna listened silently, understanding his pain. She had experienced a tough breakup at his age, which had long affected her personal life. She reassured Michelle that he shouldn't worry about work and offered him time off to recover. "Take the time you need, and remember, I'm here if you need to talk," Gianna told him, offering support. Gratefully, Michelle thanked her, feeling slightly relieved to have someone to lean on during such a difficult time. Arriving at his parents' home unannounced, Michelle was met with immediate concern from his family. His mother embraced him tightly, sensing something was wrong, likely his relationship or even the wedding. Michelle needed space and retreated to his old room, now a guest bedroom. It was different, but it offered the privacy he needed. Exhausted and still dressed, he lay down, trying to process everything. His mother cried outside his door, wanting to comfort him, but his father advised giving him space. Michelle fell into a deep, restless sleep, haunted by the day's events and the shock of his breakup with Hope, the woman he had trusted completely. Michelle quickly gathered his clothes and belongings, deciding they would reassess their relationship in a year. Without looking back at Hope, who was curled up on the floor, he left the room. Frustrated and hurt, Michelle vented his feelings by updating his Facebook and Instagram. He needed to ensure their friends and family knew the truth from his side because he doubted Hope's honesty. He then turned off his phone to avoid incoming calls and messages and sat down on the bed. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out the engagement ring he had given Hope. The ring, once a symbol of undying love and a future together, now felt like just a shiny object tarnished by betrayal. He threw it onto the side table, undressed, and crawled into bed. Why didn't she tell me before? He wondered, agonizing over her betrayal. Meanwhile, Hope had moved on more quickly than he had anticipated. Just 2 weeks after their pause, she was with Orlando, a confident man she met at a nightclub. Despite her friend's efforts to lift her spirits, Hope was lost in her sadness, missing Michelle deeply. She attempted to contact him multiple times through friends and family, but all her efforts were blocked. Finally, she got through to him, but the conversation did not go as hoped. Michelle was cold and firm, telling her he couldn't trust her anymore and questioning her past honesty. Hope pleaded for another chance, but Michelle was unyielding, hurt by her actions. Despite his lingering feelings, he couldn't see past the betrayal. Hope cried, asking if they could at least talk occasionally. Reluctantly, Michelle agreed to a phone call once a week, a small concession that gave Hope a slight sense of victory. That night, Hope went out again and met Orlando. She spent the night with him, a decision she regretted deeply afterward as she realized they hadn't been cautious. The realization made her feel even more remorseful and used. She asked Orlando to call her an Uber, reflecting on her friend's words about choosing love over fleeting encounters. Despite the fun she had, she knew deep down that love was more lasting and meaningful. She didn't respond to Orlando's question about meeting again, still processing her actions and their implications. She knew he would call her again, and she knew she would say yes, despite her doubts after their last encounter. Her friends were happy for her, yet concerned. They all wished she and Michelle could mend their relationship and rebuild trust and love. After she shared that she had resumed talking with Michelle, everyone felt a mix of excitement and worry. Then, she met another man and left with him. The next evening, gathered in Hope's apartment, she told her friends about her night. The apartment reminded them of when she lived with Michelle. It was intense, she said, but her friends sensed her inner turmoil. They responded with cheers and hugs, asking if she felt better now, hoping this would end her reckless phase. But they could tell she might continue seeking such encounters, even as she mentioned Michelle and compared the experiences, saying it meant more with him because of their love. Despite this, her friends worried she hadn't been careful. "Did you make sure to use protection?" Trisha quietly asked as they got ready for another night out. Hope remembered she hadn't and showed her friends the package of protection she had bought, promising not to forget again. "You need to get checked for STDs," her friend warned, aware of the man's reputation. "And are you on birth control?" Hope nodded, explaining she had been on the pill since she was 15 to manage period pain and had continued it with Michelle to avoid pregnancy until they were married. "Only after we're married," she added, thinking about her future with Michelle. The discussion ended with a reminder to subscribe to their channel for the next update, urging viewers to stay tuned for the continuation of her story. Thanks for listening to One Infidelity Hit. If you liked what you heard, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop us a like.